All right, Janine, Ashley, are we ready?
Hi, Pernell. Yes, this is Ashley. The meeting is now streaming live on YouTube, so I guess whenever you and Andrea are ready, you can start.
All right. Cuyahoga County Council Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, May 11th, 2021 is now called to order. Ashley, would you please call the roll? I apologize.
It's Andrea. It's Andrea. Calling the roll, Ms. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Mr. Tuma. Mr. Tuma is absent at the moment. Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Shafran.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown is absent at the moment. Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon. Okay, Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. But you do have a quorum.
All right. And
I'm here as well. Scott Tuma.
Okay, and also Council President Jones.
present. All right. Andrea, has anyone signed in for public comment?
No, Mr. President, we did not receive any public comment at this time.
All right. Okay, but we have one item today. This is our public utilities legislation on ordinance. And Andrea, would you please read the item into the record?
Andrea, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 2021-0003, amending section 202.04 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish a division of public utilities within the Department of Public Works.
All right. So I believe we have Mike here today to, again, bring this presentation to us. We have had this in committee previously. There were certainly questions by this committee and in our oversight responsibilities. But you have come today with a team to hear, again, to begin to address some of those concerns. And this is for discussion only. I'll share with the body, as you have learned in our previous email, that we are actually waiting for our prosecutor to give us an opinion. And his method of providing that opinion was to go through the state attorney general. So we are at this time waiting also for the state attorney general's opinion on our viability for being able to establish a public utility. So as we wait for that actual final piece as well, we will hold this in committee, continue to provide our oversight duties, ask appropriate questions, and again, move forward as we get all pertinent information. So again, at this time, allow me to turn it over to Mike Foley to present.
Okay, thanks, Council President. You can hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. Okay, so thanks. After the last meeting, Council had asked to put together a bunch of written questions for us to respond to, which we've done in writing back to the members. But one of the requests was that the next meeting we have on this be around economic development considerations or concerns. So we've put together, working with Paul Herdig, who will kind of run the meeting today from the administration's point of view. We've got both some local customers of the microgrid or potential customers of the microgrid and who reside in the county. Plus, you asked us if is there anyone else in the world who's done something similar to this, and so there are a couple examples that not quite fit. I mean, what we're doing is contemplating is pretty new and unique. But we have been able to get someone from the Philadelphia Navy Yards, Rudy Terry, who's actually calling me right now, so he's not on right now. But Paul's going to run through this. We've got some local customers and Rudy Terry from the Philadelphia Navy Yard, and we will ask those guys to talk about what they see as the benefits of both the county utility and the microgrid. And I'm going to try to get Rudy on the phone and make sure he has the right input for when his turn comes up to present. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul Hurdig, if that's okay.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, Council President, members of Council. I'm Paul Hurdig with the Department of Development. I would like to say a few words this afternoon about the ways in which the microgrid that the administration is proposing would be very helpful to the economic development work of Cuyahoga County. In thinking about the microgrid, there are two parts of it which are particularly helpful. First is the element of reliability of the power, in that when the local microgrids are constructed, they will be put together with backup sources of power and also with an infrastructure that is more reliable in many cases than the existing wiring infrastructure provided by the private utility CEI. So the reliability will be more, it'll be greater than they're receiving now from CEI. The second aspect is that as we're going to develop the microgrid, there will be an element of sustainable power built into it. There will be locally sourced sustainable power, for example, solar panels, which will be part of the power supply provided to the customers. Both of these elements are attractive to business, and both will help the work of Cuyahoga County and its 59 municipalities in attracting and retaining businesses. So first, as to reliability, one may commonly think of an industry in which reliability is absolutely critical as one that would be suitable for the microgrid. For example, a data center where uptime needs to be 5 nines. However, in our work and in talking with the mayors around Cuyahoga County and with businesses, we have determined that there is a broader range of industries where reliability is a concern and reliable electric power is an important issue. For example, in the manufacturing industry, we've heard numbers of stories, some of which you will hear today, from companies that are not only inconvenienced, but actually sustain pretty significant financial losses when they have a failure of their power supply from CEI. And these are companies for whom it's not feasible to build their own on-site backup power system. That simply wouldn't be competitive in their cost structure. And yet, the reliable power is important to them. So in promoting available sites for businesses to locate and in encouraging local businesses to stay where they are and grow where they are instead of moving elsewhere, it's important to our communities to be able to say, we can offer you a reliable electric power supply. The second element, again, is the sustainability. Many corporations are interested in being able to demonstrate to their shareholders, to the public, that they get a portion of their electric power from renewable sources. This is a growing concern, and it's not only an element of corporate citizenship, it is a factor that corporations consider when they're deciding on their expansion plans and siting plans. And so, in addition to the reliability factor, the ability to say that some green power will be available also makes this an attractive offer for our municipalities to give to businesses either existing or expanding. So to talk about these points, we've assembled a panel this afternoon of industry representatives and economic developers. We first are going to, if Rose Hanslick is on the line, we're going to have a brief statement by Rose Hanslick of Nestle. She has a time situation, and if she is not currently available, we do have our next speaker here with us today, which is Rudy Terry. Rudy Terry is a quasi-public developer with the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, and they have done a major development in Philadelphia where reliability of power has been quite helpful in attracting customers. So I'm going to pause for just a moment to see if Rose Hanslick of Nestle is on the line.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yes. So
how are you?
Council President, with your permission, I will turn it over to Rose Hanslick.
Yes. Good afternoon, Ms. Hanslick. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate being here. I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Paul has already shared with you, but let me just give you some perspective from Nestle As you may know, we have very large operations in Solon, Ohio. We have about 3,000 employees there and growing, lots of activity. As you can imagine, related to COVID particularly, we all continue to eat and we provide lots of different types of food for consumers. So for Nestle, I'm not sure if you're very familiar, but we have over 70 factories in the US. Currently, my responsibilities are to procure competitive and reliable power, electricity, gas, and renewables. So I spend quite a bit of time on all of these fronts. As you can imagine, because of the large demand for our products, reliability and resiliency is very, very important. In fact, here not too long ago, early in April, we had basically a momentary interruption, and that caused 30 hours of downtime for one of our production lines. So it's significant. It wasn't the whole factory per se, but definitely impactful. We're measured by our customers, which are, the Walmarts, grocery chains, Targets, and such. And so our performance is measured on our ability to deliver on the orders that we receive. So that might not seem very serious, but it is, because it could affect our top line growth. So it could affect our revenues overall. So it's very important. We have other regions of the country that are much, much worse than what we see here in Solon. But again, it's impactful at any location where we have, issues with both reliability and power quality. So we see both of those types of events related to electric service. If you know anything about Nestle, we are committed to protecting the environment and, put our best foot forward in that regard. We have, if you look on our website, we have over 16 pages of sustainability initiatives, which include things like forestation, water stewardship, of course, greenhouse gas reductions attributed both within our factories and then from our supply chain. Of course, we have things in there about packaging and others. We're working quite a bit on regenerative agriculture. We buy a lot of produce, and so we're very heavily involved with our suppliers and for our own farms. We have several farms of our own, particularly for the Gerber baby food products that we have. So what we're talking about here in the Solon area is a potential microgrid, and we're very interested. If we can improve the reliability of service, that would be great. It's also a potential other opportunity to expand our renewable energy resources. One of the sustainability goals that we have upcoming is to be 100% running on renewable electricity by 2025. That might seem like a long time from now, but it really isn't. It's right around the corner. So this type of system could for sure benefit us. We also like to contribute locally, where we have operations. So this would be definitely a positive local impact to Solon, and we would love to support the community in that way as well. That's all I had, unless you have any questions.
Thank you. And Council President, with your permission, because Ms. Hansick has limited time, while we'd like to let the other presenters go, we would at this time ask if there's any questions directly from Ms. Hansick.
Yes. Council, are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Hanslick?
Mr. President.
Councilman Shafran.
Are you currently using uninterrupted power right now at Nestle, at your facility, through natural gas or anything of that nature?
We do have emergency backup power, but it's, if there's a power quality event or momentary event, we really can't engage that unless we have, very large uninterruptible power supplies like you're suggesting. So it's very expensive. We could, on an extended outage period, certainly use our on-site generation, but not to the extent that you're suggesting. Not for an automatic throw over where we wouldn't be interrupted at all.
So if this is provided, it sounds like it's an economic advantage to you. You're prepared to pay a higher rate then for that interruption?
It's certainly a delicate balance between cost and resiliency, improvement in power quality. That would have to be a decision that we address at the time, once we understand the cost, and then what we expect as far as reliability from this potential microgrid system in Solon.
But assuming it's the reliability that you were mentioning, and you cannot fire up your own uninterrupted power for micro blasts or loss of power. Is this economically advantageous when you're producing food to not have a break in there?
Absolutely. Yeah, again, it's very disruptive. We have employees standing by. We have, having to restart lines. Sometimes we have equipment damage, like with our VSDs, variable speed drives, for motors. So, we prevent any of that type of activity. And oftentimes there's also safety issues. When we have a, fast moving conveyor and all of a sudden we lose power, we have things that, go mobile, off the conveyor too. So it really just depends on what's in process at the time and the extent of the event, power quality event.
So I'm just trying to understand the event that you're talking about, a micro interruption that pulses. You're not going to be firing up your backup systems, I assume, right? It's only when you actually have a down power that you're gonna continue to fire up your gas and whatever your redundancy is that's there.
That's correct.
Okay, so now let's switch to, you now have a microgrid that can cover both ends, both the long-term and the micro pulse electronics. That micro pulse electronics that you're talking about not having a break, is that advantageous to you to make that happen to the point where it's worthwhile financially to be paying a different rate for that?
It definitely would be more valuable than the service levels we have now. I can't speak to the economics. You're not telling me exactly what the cost would be, so I can't really speak and say definitively yes, but it would be worth more to us, to have a more reliable system, certainly that can ride through power quality and momentary interruptions.
Okay, our body doesn't know the cost. We're just trying to, the council body is just trying to get facts. Somebody else is going to do the pricing. So you'll be negotiating with somebody else on the cost.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Mr. Hanslick, you mentioned that you experienced 30 hours of downtime. Can you give us a little more insight? Did your own internal systems mitigate that, prevent it, or how was that 30 hours impactful to you? And
well, what happened was when we had, and I think it was single phasing. So that means that, normally industrial equipment runs on 3 phases. And one of the phases was out. So it was interrupted. So what that does, it single phases our equipment, creates quite a bit of damage if we don't have single phasing protection, which, by the way, that's a standard that we now install for our systems in the factory to protect against that type of event. So when that happens, like I kind of mentioned earlier about, variable speed drives, those get impacted, the control systems get impacted. So we oftentimes have to replace motors. We also have to do cleanup. We're in a food safe environment, so it's not as if we can just, start the thing back up and run as we were. We oftentimes have to clean up, which requires extensive sanitation. So those things, take quite a bit of time. And then if there's equipment damage, then we have to go out and, replace whatever was damaged and replace that and, do the wiring and the startup and the testing and, before we can restart the factory. I'm sorry, I don't have that level of detail, Mr. Jones, specific to this. I'm involved with a lot of factories though, so I'm kind of going from those examples on the impact. The food safe environment is a little bit tricky though, because again, as I said, we have to do quite a bit of sanitation to restart the lines and, continue operation.
okay, well, thank you very much. Are there any further questions of Mrs. Hanslick from committee?
Mr.
Just one
Chairman,
question.
Councilman Miller and then Councilwoman Baker.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my colleagues and to Ms. Hansley, just a comment that representing one of the largest corporations in the world, I would like to thank you for your presence in Cuyahoga County and for your commitment to sustainability. And we certainly wish to continue to work with you as partners and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's our pleasure to be here.
Mr.
Councilwoman.
I may just a question. So, Ms. Hanslick, the 30 hours of downtime, is that 30 hours on the average that you have as downtime per year? Is that just an unusual downtime if that was only this year? And are you talking about only the Solon location?
I was aware of the recent solar outage. It was actually a power quality event, like I said earlier, the single phasing event. Nothing is typical, really. It just really depends on the type of event it is. If it's an event that was not single phasing, again, without one of those phases, it really starts to impact our equipment, and that's damaged or just interrupted. So, but if it's a momentary outage, maybe 1 or 2 cycles, and there's 60 cycles per second, if you're familiar with the technology, if it's a couple second or a couple cycle event, we sometimes can ride through, where we're not seeing an impact at all. So it just really depends on the extent of the power quality event or interruption from the utility. So if it's a couple minutes, absolutely, that's going to take much more time, to restart the equipment. If it's an extended outage, then we're looking to, fire up our on-site generation, because it's not just about the food safe environment, but it's also about the other ingredients that we have in our factory, that have refrigeration requirements, to keep at the proper temperature for the quality of the food, the ingredients for the food. So it's not just, nothing is typical. So those are just some ideas on how it does affect us.
So if I may, just for clarity, so the downtime for your Solon location, which is what this microgrid would be supplying, that one location, you would see an advantage. You have enough time down in the weather environment that we have that would justify the increase in rate pay.
Again, because I don't know the financial economics of it, and we're very, it's a competitive marketplace that we live in, with consumers. So I can't say you can't double our cost. I don't feel like that would be viable. So, I don't know to the extent of what the increase in cost is. I can say that we're very interested and fully support this initiative to investigate. We continue to grow. We just added new production lines that just started up a few months ago. We have a plant-based food product that's started here, additional production in Solon. So, but there is a high interest level. Again, I can't speak to the economics unless you're sharing details about that, but it's definitely worth looking at, and potential incremental costs depending on, the level of what that is.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. President. To Ms. Hanslick, on Dale Miller's comments, thank you for your commitment to Cuyahoga County. And my question is, with your worldwide footprint and this particular piece of legislation we're talking about, is basically in my eyes, an economic tool to make Cuyahoga County more attractive for business to relocate. And with your worldwide footprint, I imagine you're going to expand and invest in other cities and states throughout the world, basically. If there's a microgrid, would that be more attractive to make the decision to build and have a portion of another city in your portfolio?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. The resiliency and reliability of power continues to be concerning. We have some factories in California, and so, we've got quite a bit of risk over there. And as we look to expand, we'll always be looking for that utility, reliability of service and resiliency. Right now we're actually citing 4 new factories right now. So it's a very important part of our process. Obviously we're still looking at other things like employment levels, and the type of workforce that we need, and the transportation services that we need, and the wastewater treatment that we need. But utilities is definitely in that top list as well, with regards to reliability and adequacy of supply.
Thank you. So I'm just hearing from you, it'd be a significant component of your decision-making process.
Yes. That's correct.
to my colleagues or to Director Foley, this would give us a leg up on bringing new. How much of this is going to be involved with existing customers in Cuyahoga County that could participate in a grid because it's only certain geographical areas in size? So I'm thinking it's just going to be much better tool to attract people than have the ability to service existing companies. Is that a good understanding of it?
Yeah, Councilman, it's Mike Foley. Correct. I mean, so we're looking at geographic districts. We're not looking to take over the whole grid. Just reiterate that. This is for economic development reasons in explicit kind of geographic regions where there's commercial customers who really want high resiliency electricity, and where we can also attract new businesses to come into. So that's both to help existing businesses and also do economic development attraction.
Thank you. To my council president, I just think this is a long range vision thing instead of immediate fixed gratification. And as I said, I'm a sponsor, I'm supportive, and I appreciate your leadership and giving us an opportunity to understand it more deeply. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Did I see another hand? If not, Mr. Foley, I'll allow you to.
Mr. President.
Did I say, oh, yes, Councilman Strong.
Yeah, in regards to the Nestle utilization of when they have to do the analysis, you indicated that I think to Councilman Sweeney's question, you have multiple different locations. How many of those locations that you're looking to do expansion have a microgrid right now?
None that I know of.
How many? I'm sorry.
None that I know of.
Okay, so the other factors you listed as far as talent and supply chain and all the other components, where would this fit in your decision if none of the other ones even have that? If this is a game changer, then we should win. If it's only one of 10 other attributes, where would this fit in your attributes?
My best estimation is that it would be in the top 7 categories. One of the other very important things as we think about sustainability is logistics, transportation to our markets. We have to serve certain markets, so we also have to be thinking about, how far are we from those markets, and then the associated transportation and emissions associated with that too. Because we have a net zero target, that's also part of the equation in addition to the other factors that I shared earlier.
Okay, and I assume that talent's probably number 1 on that list of 7, I would think.
Yes, it's high on that list. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if no further questions, Mr. Foley, it is back in your hands.
Thanks. And Mike, I'll continue. Mr. President, thank you, and thank you, members. We have additional panelists. Next will be Rudy Terry with the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation. And respectfully asked, in the interest of getting through all the panelists, if we could get through Mr. Terry, and there's going to be 4 shorter statements after his, and hold questions, that would be respectfully requested. But I do want to introduce Mr. Terry, and I will just give a little bit of a hint that he's also going to talk about a company in the food service business. Go ahead, Rudy. You're muted, sir. You're muted.
Apologize. Yes, we're in the Philadelphia area. I work for a company called PIDC, Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation. We manage a land bank called PAID, Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development. And we develop property, lend money all over Philadelphia and a little bit into the 10-county area. But we also recently, not too recently, 20 years ago, the Navy decided to turn over the very first Navy yard in the United States to PIDC to take that over for whatever we wanted to do with it. And our mission was to develop it. So over those years, we have turned it into a commercial and industrial business park. The Navy is still there, so we have the federal government with us. But we do have some marquee corporations that have moved in, have chosen to be down at the Navy Yard. And a year later, in 2001, it was decided that we'd actually also take over the Navy's electric grid because they were going around cutting all the lines to buildings they weren't going to be using. And we didn't think that was going to help us very much. So we decided to get into the utility business. We are not really utility people. So we went out and hired Navy and contractors to run the grid initially. And over the course of the 20 years, the grid has grown quite a bit because the number of people that have been attracted to the Navy Yard, due to the waterfront, the presence of the Navy with their inactive ships there, it's kind of interesting. The campus started to develop as a millennial haven, just got that cool factor that people want to be down there. When Urban Outfitters moved their global headquarters in, that really started attracting people. GlaxoSmithKline built a great brand new building with their North American headquarters centered there. We have data centers, we have hospital. And to Ms. Hansili's business, we also have Tasty Cake, the North American bakery, or the only bakery for Tasty Cake there. The reason Tasty Cake moved there is because of reliability problems where they were in Philadelphia. So we convinced them in 2010 that we could do better than that. In 2013, we issued an energy master plan for the grid, and we started investing big dollars in the grid. I can't say that we've ended up as a microgrid because, again, we have to be financially responsible and financially sustainable. And we have to be financially sustainable in a way that we don't overcharge our tenants, because they do have, some of our tenants have facilities outside of the Navy Yard and they check the rates. But what we do is we run our grid just like an investor-owned utility. And we try to also be environmentally sustainable. So we have added assets to the grid. So that was all part of the energy master plan. We've added some $30 million of assets to the grid. The Navy has done a lot of expansion, especially when Donald Trump was in office. So we have built a lot of services and things for them. We've traded equipment and we've rewired a lot of the Navy Yard for those purposes. What we like to say is the Navy Yard is a smart grid. We have about 100 major accounts. Again, all big customers. We don't have any residential. And we, again, make it economically attractive to be there. Over the years, Penn State has had a presence at the Navy Yard working with the Navy. They decided to create a academic presence there, and they've been an innovation engine around energy there. So we have become known as an energy innovator. But I like to say that we are a smart grid, but we have not seen the economics yet to become a microgrid. We believe that can happen, but to the points that have been made earlier, we have to see the economics. And, better yet, the corporations that are there have to see the economics, because the utility cannot afford to put the additional equipment there along with the buildings to make a true advanced microgrid. But what we can do with our smart grid is, and we are doing it, is that when we lay out new areas of our underground cabling, and we are underground, so we're inherently reliable, we create areas around building industry types that can become a microgrid if 3 or 4 buildings want to hold hands and say, we don't want to go down in the next hurricane. So if they get together and put some dollars up, we can bring Penn State and others to the table and help them create that microgrid. So we're the up close and friendly utility that will help bring in and create whatever customers want to create there and make it as economic as possible for all sides. What we do presently that's creative and innovative is we leverage the PJM market. And hopefully you all know what the PJM market is, but it's like the New York Stock Exchange for energy. We get revenues from the market using our assets. We have variable power pricing for all of the volume that I buy, and I can control the price with my assets. In other words, I have physical hedges, and I can put financial hedges out there with future power purchases. So we use all that flexibility, and we are now working on a connected communities type situation where we get together with our customers and we optimize the economics between the buildings and the grid. In fact, we extend our grid into the buildings. And with edge computing and AMI metering, these are all buzzwords, but it's the latest space age technology for metering and connecting to buildings. We can work with our customers. And what's interesting about the Navy Yard is our customers are all for that kind of thing. So Penn State and other universities come in and help with that. And we're kind of a melting pot of things to do on the grid. And right now we're in a smart city study, which is laying out a roadmap. And PECO, the local large utility in the area, is a partner in such a way as that they're paying for half of it. So they're a serious partner. But they can't do what we can do because they have to go to the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, to do anything real in their territory and sit in front of, have community meetings to make things happen. We can do them as long as we don't drive our customers out of the Navy Yard, and PECO can decide if that's something that is going to be valuable in their territory. So we've become a little bit known around the country and even around other countries in the world because there's been a lot of interest and we've had lots of visitors. But again, we're not a pure microgrid. We can create those within our smart grid, and we help our customers do what they think is best for them. Our assets include 8 megawatts of generation, which we have folks manage for that optimally in markets. It includes large energy storage battery system. It includes a small solar system, solar PV, and a fuel cell. And we can use all of those assets to our benefits and our customers' benefits, because again, we have total control over the financial side and the mechanical side, electrical side of what's going on. So with that, if I missed anything, Paul or Mike, fill in the blanks. And other than that, I'm open to questions.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Terry. You introduced a new concept for me in the concept of smart grid as opposed to microgrid. And you certainly talked about it, but maybe if you could just distinguish a little more for me the difference between a microgrid, which we are certainly targeting, and a smart grid. What is the difference between the two?
Okay, I'll try to be non-technical with this.
Okay.
So first of all, with the Tasty Cake thing, we provided them brand new dual feeders, medium voltage feeders to their building out of a brand new substation with all brand new switch gear. And all of the switch gear is digitally monitored. So when you start to put digital monitoring in high voltage or medium voltage switch gear, you're getting into smart grid territory, because then you can create a virtual picture of your whole grid active live wherever you want it and control it and alarm it and make sure that everything's operating properly. So for Tasty Cake, they're not a smart grid. They love to be one. I mean, they're not a microgrid. They'd love to be one because they're a huge plant. If anything goes wrong, it's just as Ms. Hanzilli was saying, it's just a mess, and they don't want anything to go wrong. But we have, again, an underground new set of infrastructure for them and for a lot of our customers. And there's nothing special there other than it just doesn't break. We have 9 lines coming in from Pico into 3 main substations, and then we send the power out at the same voltage. There's no transformation, so there's very little equipment, but there's lots of redundancy in the basic fundamental equipment. It's all underground, again, and thus inherently reliable. So the smart grid, then what's smart about the smart grid beyond that is that the PJM market offers revenues and offers the ability to buy energy in such a way that you can manage your price down. You don't have to buy just a fixed price using assets. And the assets have a break-even cost, and as long as you stay above that, you can improve your situation for yourself and your customers. You can drive your own rates to your customers down by doing that. So that's a smart grid, because this is all technology that does this. It has to happen hourly. It has to happen automatically, because nobody can sit up and track that all night long. To be a microgrid, like in the context that we're talking about it here, is if power goes out to Tasty Cake would not feel a blip. Now, how does that happen? You need to have a big battery, and you need to have some generation right at the site or very close. And that battery has to kick in instantaneously. So it's got to be hooked up like a UPS on your computer, so that if power is lost incoming, that battery takes over instantaneously, because everything's going through the battery anyway. And the battery will carry you for several minutes to 30 minutes so that you can start those generators and get those up to level running so that they can kick in. That's fundamentally what a microgrid does relative to a smart grid. And that's not cheap, but what is losing, at Tasty Cake, they monetize these things. And now, since they haven't gone down significantly at the Navy Yard in the 10 years they've been there, they don't see the economics in the microgrid yet. We've been too good to them just with the more basic side of things. So I think there is a place for microgrids, but you can work your way into that. And that's what we've done here. And Penn State has gone around giving presentations about how that's been done at the Navy Yard with the smart grid concept that can quickly spawn for interested customers this microgrid concept. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. I appreciate it. Last thing,
Mr. President, on your point.
I was raised in Baltimore, Maryland, and I was raised on Tasty Cake. So I'm happy to see them here in Cleveland now in recent years. So you're doing something, because they are growing and they're expanding. So thank you.
I'll mail you a couple.
Oh, don't tease me like that. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Now I'll say this: we have 45 minutes.
Mr. President, on that point,
try to space out time to allow everyone to get in and all of our presenters. So Marty, you have the floor.
very quickly, Mr. President, on your call of the smart technology or smart grid, or Director Foley, does this legislation give you the flexibility to either go microgrid or smart? I think that's my hope is it gives you a lot of different flexibility for whatever else we can do to make this Cuyahoga County attractive for relocating business.
Yeah, Councilman Sweeney, yes, it does. So it gives us, we can do both. We can do either or. And I just want to reiterate, one of the advantages we have with the county utility is that we've got some price flexibility because we're not subject to the riders that First Energy charges to all their distribution customers. So we've got some play within the rates as as businesses now take power from. So we've got about 25 to 30% of those costs we're not subject to as a county utility. So we've got flexibility in terms of price as well. So it gives us flexibility in terms of smart grid, microgrid, and also price.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions,
Mr. President?
Councilman?
Yes, Mr. Carey, so you've been at the smart grid for how long at this point?
Personally, 10 years.
And in 10 years, we haven't found anybody who is in need, cost economically justification, as we just heard from Nestle, if the numbers aren't there to justify a microgrid, even though they have the exact same issue at Tasty Cake as they have at Nestle. Why do you think that is? I know you say you're too good to them, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's for
Obviously
them.
delivering semi
for them.
uninterrupted power already. It sounds like you're, by burying the power lines, by having all the other things you've done, you've addressed power lines coming down in storms. You've addressed probably keeping clean power because it doesn't pick up interruptions and all kinds of other things. So you've been a good steward in all those things.
Yeah, so your arguments here are all still valid because not everybody not everybody can afford that infrastructure. Residential can't afford that infrastructure for sure, unless it's a brand new development. So at the Navy Yard, we were privileged to have a lot of that infrastructure there, and we've replaced quite a bit over the years, but we didn't have to build it from scratch. So we started out with a pretty good system because the Navy had built it. They didn't want it to break either. It was 100 years old, you know, in the beginning, but so there's been a lot of updates to it. So, and then with a range of customers, we have a data center and they did their own thing. They put in 3,000 horsepower of generation just for themselves and a battery and battery in between and all of that so that they could keep computers running. So certain businesses do it because that's what the business is. They're selling electricity basically to computer users. So they're selling reliability. But other companies have to scratch their heads. Now, why hasn't it happened over the 10 years? Again, buildings have come in, they're brand new buildings. Usually we're building brand new circuits to those brand new buildings. We're building 2 feeder. We typically build 2 feeders, either dual radial or what we call a loop circuit. So it's coming in from both sides of the building. And both of those designs are inherently redundant just in the basic infrastructure. So even if they went down like a regular office building, they're back up in a half an hour. And then we'll fix the problem wherever it is. And if they're dual radial, they may not go down at all, depending on if they're using both or one of them. The Navy is usually redundant, so they don't go down. So there's all kinds of ways you can cut this, but the advanced stuff is going to be attractive to certain and the sustainable things. We have a lot of millennials and they're willing, it's a socio-economic problem for them, not just economics. So you know, they care about the sustainability and the earth warming and all of that, and they haven't necessarily done a big thing, but they're making a lot of noise about it within their companies. Other more traditional companies it's just a line on the budget. I'm not too worried about my electric costs. So everybody's different. Every customer has to be treated differently when you're looking at how does this apply to them and how much of it applies to them.
Will this cost less or more, the microgrid?
It's generally going to cost more.
Okay, so those same millennials, when they have to take their own checkbook out, they're going to pay more for what you just.
They're willing to do that. They're willing to pay for green roofs. They're willing to pay for solar. They're willing. There are companies led by those people that are willing to pay for that.
But not a single one yet at your naval yards.
not in our name. They talk a good game, but they haven't done it yet.
Okay, because the cost driver, or because that interruption you're talking about, you got multiple interruptions, at least as I understand what was described. Nestle had up to 30 hours worth of lost time during the course of the year, but we get a lot of snow here sometimes. I don't know if you heard that. There's a rumor that we get some snow here in the Midwest. And so that sometimes is taking down those power lines that you're describing, but not the ones that are embedded and buried underground, because that you will take that risk out there. So that's if Nestle was doing that and getting power from two different sources, they would be addressing what you're talking about, the redundancy, I assume, where it comes in from two different parts of the grid.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if it's really affecting your business, you're going to talk about it. Now, we have the latest rage is the biotech companies. So we have 7 large buildings growing gene therapy and, T cells and that kind of thing. They're power sensitive as well. But again, they have 2 or 3 separate services coming in. We've got one company with 4 buildings. They've been there for at least 15 years now. We have a lot of eds and meds in our area, so a lot of the people were local coming in and developing these technologies for University of Pennsylvania Medical and all of that. So we have not disappointed them with power. Thus, they haven't gotten too upset with not having some alternatives. Typically, those buildings do build their own generators, but none of them have done that yet. That's our problem right now, is our grid, our basic grid. And so our problem is different than your problem. I don't want you to use us as an example, because again, the Navy built one hell of a grid. You couldn't put a bullet through those lines, let me tell you. But
thank goodness, because they're also building submarines and things like that up there.
Which is a good deal. Yeah.
I don't want anybody, breaking our, we had somebody just break through our grid line with natural gas, it looks like this week.
Right.
Like when they did an interruption out there.
But the point is, they are talking about innovative things that will be interesting to companies, and companies with younger populations, that you have to have an updated grid and you have to have some control over managing it to implement. And that's the market activities and the ability to optimize your economics by, I can, harvest demand. And I've told this to Mike and Paul, that the next big push is to get with our customers, and I want to harvest all that demand in their buildings that they don't really need, using VFDs on their blowers and things like that. And then there'll be automatic transactions with PJM Market where they'll get automatically paid. They'll get a share of that. I'll get a cut of it. And it'll all automatically happen because of these markets in PJM, and will lower the use of energy and the cost of energy at the same time. Those are things that excite me. And that's what a smart grid's all about.
Right. All those things you just talked about are smart grid. They're not microgrid solutions, where you're just taking power that's surplus in somebody else's building and redistributing it to somebody else who has a need for it.
I think we need to make a correction here, Mr. Tron, that a microgrid is a subset of a smart grid. And the differential that Rudy pointed out correctly is that you need to have the ability to operate in an islanded mode. And that's what makes it a microgrid versus just a general smart grid. But a microgrids that we're proposing are smart grids and have all of these capabilities that we're talking about. But not all smart grids have the generation capability to operate as a microgrid. Thanks.
That's a good summary.
And in the course of supporting the microgrid concept that you said would be the next evolution, you indicated there would be battery backups and micro startups so that you didn't have a blip at all in there. What happens to all the batteries that are going to get built for all these micro startups out there?
What happens with them?
Yeah, eventually they're going to fail, will they not? And you have to be recycled?
They'll have to be recycled. Yes, we have in the system we just put in a 6 megawatt battery. It's 353-foot trailers full of racks of batteries, and that'll last 10 years. They'll degrade 80%, and then we'll decide whether we want to continue to use it or replace them. And then we're creating, hopefully not a biohazard. I understand where you're going with that, but
Just asking questions. That's my job. Thank you.
right. Now, the way we got things done, you didn't, just one little comment here is that we don't pay for all of this stuff necessarily. The battery project was third party. So we leased them land, said they could come here and hook to our system. This is another beautiful thing about being a private grid. And so they paid for the whole thing. They want to monetize it. I'm sharing in that. I want to do things I want to do with it, but I didn't have to pay for it. So I'm renting hours per year out of that battery, and they have to take care of it. They have to operate it, replace it, do whatever they have to do, and then they get to use it too. So there's all kinds of ways to put this stuff together.
And whatever happens, that's going to be a market-based pricing, I assume. If they're going to pay for it out of their own pocket, then they're going to charge it based on anybody who wants to use it. Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, Mr. Foley. And thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dick.
Mike, Council President. Next to speak are two private sector representatives. First, Anthony Catanese of MD&A Turbines, and then Scott Reinhard of PPG. And then there'll be two additional speakers from the Arizona and the Cleveland Foundation to wrap this up. So next up is Mr. Anthony Catanese of MD&A Turbines.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So yes, my name is Anthony Catanese. I'm with MD&A, Mechanical Dynamics and Analysis, and we are a company who rebuilds parts for the power utilities. So like these CEI, they have people who make power for them locally, would be like Perry Power Plant. They have different turbine lines that produce power. We go in and do turnkey solutions to overhaul and repair their components here in the Cleveland location, as we call ourselves. We repair bearings, hydrogen seals, hydraulic components, and all different types of equipment that support and the turbine runs on. So we moved to Euclid about 5 years ago. Technically, it'll be 6 years this summer to this wonderful building we're in. And we have had a few issues where we've had reliability issues with CEI. Obviously we're a huge support of a microgrid and upgrading the infrastructure here. But just to define, so when we lose power, it is a big deal. We have multiple CNC machines plus different manual machining centers. And when we lose power, we often scrap most of the products that are on our machines. So when they go down, you just can't, it's not very easily to pick up the cut or to fix the component that you were cutting because you kind of lost control of the machine. It scrapped the product while you're on it. And that's a big deal for us. So we lose thousands and thousands of dollars every time we have an outage on the products that are on our machines, let alone the downtime lost of our employees who run the machines, and then obviously the delay. For those of you who are not familiar with the power industry is very, very demanding as far as their outages. We often sign LTSAs or not LTSAs, excuse me. We sign agreements saying all of our components will be done on a certain day. And if we are late, we have liquidated damages associated with our lateness. So we had an outage this spring that we had liquidated damages. I believe the rate was 100,000 a day. And when we lost power for the day, that did delay our shipping our product to the site, which delayed the reassembly of the turbine. Now, since MD&A had crews on site, we were able to recover and prevent the loss of that, or the loss of the schedule and that 1 day delay, and that saved that $100,000. But we were very, very close to causing the delay and causing a failure to deliver our products to site on time and get the unit up and running by that specific date. In saying that, so, yeah, we lost power for a day, and most people say if I lose power for a day, I lose power for a couple hours, it's no big deal. It's obviously very critical to us. And CEI says you have great service if you have 3 or less power outages a year. And that outage could be 1 minute, that outage could be 30 days. It's still considered one outage. And you are not a problem person or a problem account unless you have more than 7 outages a year. So I think that's very telling that, we could have 3 outages that could cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost sales, our reputation, scrapping products. It doesn't matter. We are still considered getting great service. So getting a microgrid and upgrading the infrastructure in this area is going to really help us grow our business and allow us to serve the power utilities much better. Now, with the microgrid, we are absolutely on board with some of the companies going green as far as, windmills and solar panels. Those are all great technologies, and they're getting better every year, and the battery technologies is getting better. But we are technically a division of Mitsubishi Power. And something that Mitsubishi Power is doing is they're starting hydrogen ran gas turbines. So when you burn natural gas, there is obviously CO2 emissions from that. But when you burn hydrogen, hydrogen combines with oxygen in the turbine, and the only output then is water. So there are newer technologies that still use the turbine technologies that we support and our parent company is working on for other solutions to the power grid out there as well, which can be folded into the microgrid here. So just kind of summing up, we are a company in Euclid. We've been here for 5 years and we're growing, and we will do whatever we need to do to help support the microgrid and upgrading the infrastructure here in our local area.
All right, any questions?
Thank you.
And again, I'll remind everyone that we have about 30 minutes as we govern ourselves. Any questions? No, if not,
Thank you.
thank you very much for the
Mr.
presentation.
Jones, I just have a quick one.
Right ahead, Councilman.
Anthony, you were talking about your when you were down. What did you do to back up any potential future outages?
For the amount of equipment we have in our facility and for the cost to put in a backup generation, we can't. It's not economically feasible for us to do that. So what did we do? We just kind of had to stand by and figure out what, wait for the power to come back on. And the problem is after you put in so many tickets with CEI, they turn off their machines and they say, yep, we know we have a problem, and we don't update anybody because we're getting flooded with so many calls. We'll fix it when we get it. So we, unfortunately, when we have outages, usually the call centers get flooded, and then we just kind of sit around and kind of look at each other and wait for everything to come back on.
Well, let me give you a what if. What if you this were to happen and you were to basically be given a guarantee your power is not going to go down, and your power goes down? Would you entertain coming after the county for losses? Because as you said, they're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even if it's a day.
I don't think, I would honestly don't think we would. I don't think we would consider coming after the county for that. But I think the goal here is to get more reliable power. And if we have more reliable power and a way to so I guess there's two things. A, it's reliability, and so the microgrid and the infrastructure would be fantastic. It's more reliable, but also communication of what's going on. And it sounds like with the added technologies of a smart grid or a microgrid, we will be also updated with what's going on and the status of that. So some more communication would be also a great thing to be able to plan our production schedules and say, hey, you guys are going to be down for 3 hours, but we're pretty confident we're going to have you back up in 3 hours. We can keep people, hanging out until the power's back up and running. So it's not only reliability, but it's also information.
as I understand it, it's not going to go down at all. And my concern is not quite honestly you, but the treasury of the taxpayers being exposed in any way. That's the glitch in all of this, as I see. Whether it works or not, after the last speaker, I'm now really confused. But I just want our exposure to be down, and I was very interested to see what a big company such as yourself did to correct any potential downages. And you're telling me because of cost, it's not worth it to you. So that tells me the cost is astronomical, and that has to be factored into any potential dealings with private companies dealing with a guarantee of uninterrupted energy. So many things to consider. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Councilman Simon?
Oh, sorry, I got out of Zoom. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I thank you so much, Anthony, for being here from Euclid. I so appreciate you being in the city and the work that you're doing, and obviously you stepping up to testify today about what you're experiencing is important to the company and to the taxpayers of the county of Euclid and District 11. But nobody's told you there's any guarantee on power from a grid, have they? I mean, there's no guarantees here. That's
No.
not something, right? Of course. So, that's all going to be, a subject to a contract, and you understand that there's no 100% perfect on any contract or energy generator that you'll have.
Yeah, we agree, we understand that fully, but anything that can help us and support us to be keep us up more uptime and less downtime would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any further questions?
Mr. President?
Your hand, Councilman Strong.
Yeah, Anthony, you understand there's going to be a cost associated with that uptime. You indicated you were down 3 days, and I assume you're running both manual and CNC machines. I think I heard you say?
That's correct, yes.
So your manual machines clearly are not going to have an uptime consideration. The person's just not running the manual machine. The CNC, I can understand, because you got the D codes and all the other things that are going on inside that, the various machines, as far as, I don't know whether you're in 3, 4, 5 axis, what you're running, but how much are you willing to pay for those 3 days?
As far as the payment, I'm sure we are, we're a company that I don't worry about, if I'm not trying to find the lowest material out there. I'm not trying to find the cheapest labor out there. I'm trying to find reliable vendors, reliable solutions, so that I can predict my deliveries and get everything to our customers on time. It's about keeping the power utilities running, and it's about who can deliver and who can get me what I need as soon as possible. Now, as far as going back to the power, I need reliable power so I can accurately predict and schedule products out the door. Now, just real quick, going back to the manual machines, when you machine something, it's all about the speed and feed in which you feed that insert through the part. So yes, a CNC machine is a lot more sensitive to a power loss. When you hit certain speeds and feeds and accommodate a certain finish on a component, when you lose the power on the manual machine, you lose your finish on that component. So if we ruin the finish because we're on a final pass, then just doesn't matter if it's on a manual machine or a CNC machine, that component is no good.
Yeah, I know a little something about manufacturing. So you indicated that you were prepared to accept or get hit with $100,000 in liquidated damages on a 1-day delay out there. I'm just trying to find out how much of that $100,000 risk exposure you're willing to put forth to get the power reliability for those 3 days. Because 3 days out of, I don't know how many work days we're looking at, that's if you're working 220 work days out of the year, that's basically a little more than 1%. So are you willing to put some money to where you say you want that 1% guarantee? Not a guarantee, like Simon said, don't use the word guarantee, but when somebody tells me we're going to hit 99.99%, I think that gives me a cause of action if somebody's going to promise me that kind of delivery and eliminate those 3 days. So what amount are you thinking that's worth to you, your company?
The exact, can I say we're willing to pay more? Yes, we're willing to pay more. What's the dollar amount? I can't tell you today what that dollar amount is. But just to reiterate, I think there was some, maybe I misspoke. We were only down for about a full day. The 3 days was just an example. Whether you're out for 5 minutes or 3 days, they count that as one occurrence as far as the interruption in service with the power utility.
Okay, so
And if you have up to 3, you are considered, you're getting excellent service.
so you were so tight on your performance, or it was going to interrupt your performance that one day was potentially going to cost you that $100,000 of liquidated damages.
Yep.
Just trying to, because obviously all of this comes down to a cost. As you, I don't know if you've been on the entire call for this, but there's a cost benefit, and the gentleman who runs a very smart grid was looking at that same cost comparison. I'm just trying to identify what that's worth to you folks. How many people do you have, Anthony, in your
We
operation?
currently have 50 people at this current location, and we are looking to expand, and we are looking to consolidate. So the question would be is if we consolidated and brought another division from a different part of Ohio into the building here, which we have the space for, that's something that is out there and is a possibility. And I think
Bring them on. We'll find an economic development driver to get you here.
There you go.
But
There you
we'll
go.
find a way to get your other 50 people here and making parts here. I know
Great.
Miss Simon and I are completely in agreement with whatever we can do to generate those jobs coming here to Northeast Ohio, especially into Euclid. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you,
we would-
Councilman Tron. We can start with this utility in the Public Works Department and move toward a smart grid. So that would be great. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further questions? All right, Mr. Foley, would you like to move to your next presenter? And again, thank you very much, Mr. Anthony.
So again,
Paul's got
Mike
it.
or myself, we next have Mr. Scott Reinhard of PPG to speak.
Hi, I'm Scott Reinhard. I'm the plant manager of PPG here in Euclid on St. Clair Avenue. We make metal pre-treatment chemicals here at our facility for automotive, industrial, and food packaging, metal can, food and beverage industry. So obviously, as in the chemical industry, reliable power is obviously very important to us, as well as the sustainability. If you looked at the annual report for PPG, in the first few pages, it speaks to what we're doing from a sustainability standpoint as a company. So that's important as well. Some recent events that we had on November 16th last year, and also on December 2nd last year, we had full day power outages. That power outage started in the evening and went through the next afternoon. We operate at a 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. schedule. And those 2 days we had no production for 2 full days. And those were days where it was not major weather events. There was some wind, but we did have full day power outages. We did pay everyone once we saw that it looked like it was going to be an all-day shutdown. We did send people home, our wage folks, but we did pay them for the day. So we incurred that cost of no production, as well as paying our workforce with no production. Another impact that we had is we could not ship any product because our dock locks are operated with power, and we average about 80 shipments per day. So we had to reschedule our shipments with those customers and disappoint customers. So it's just a reliability issue with our customers, as well as for not meeting those shipments. And there have been some smaller, shorter outages, which require things like resetting equipment, resetting VFDs, getting our environmental equipment back in operation, like scrubbers and dust collectors, before we can operate, restarting boilers and such. So even minor or small power blips can be disruptive in the chemical industry. But again, 2 significant all-day power outages that we had were problematic for us last year. So that's really all that I have to say. Appreciate what the city is considering here. And again, it would be very helpful for us from a power reliability and sustainability standpoint.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just one, if I may, Mr. President. So I just
Councilwoman
wanted to
Baker.
understand, Mr. Reinhardt, 2 days down last year, that would be enough for you to justify the added expense of a microgrid? You would be in line to consider it?
So again, what some of the other folks have mentioned, it would depend on what the cost is. Obviously, there is a cost balance for that reliability. We could calculate what that payback would be with estimating, without that reliability, it would just be a financial calculation of whether it would be worthwhile to us.
In your support of the microgrid, though, it sounds like there would be it would have to probably be pretty high of a cost for you not to consider it, given your support of it.
Oh, yeah. I believe so. Obviously 2 full days of paying our workforce and disappointing customers, there's some soft dollars things as well. If you lose a customer because of poor reliability, that's even more significant. So certainly there would be some cost benefit, even if we would have to pay a higher cost for higher reliability.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Right. Any further questions? If not, Mike, please continue. And again, thank you very much, Mr. Reinhard.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so Mike or myself, we have 2 additional speakers who will kind of put this in context of other civic efforts. First, we have Joe Shafran of the Arizona Alliance. And finally, at the end, we'll meet Mr. Stephen Love of the Cleveland Foundation. So, Mr. Shafran?
Yeah, Paul, this is Mike. So Joe called, he can't get on the Zoom call. So he's in offsite in Galion, Ohio, and he's trying to get on through his phone and he can't get on. But he said he apologizes for not being able to get on. And he said anyone who wants to talk to him about this, the Arizona and his business out there are fully in support, and he's more than willing to talk to anyone personally offline. So I think we go to Stephen Love next from the Cleveland Foundation.
All right, Stephen Love.
Right, thank you. Good afternoon, Council President. Good afternoon, County Council members. As Paul mentioned, my name is Stephen Love. I'm the Program Manager for Environment at the Cleveland Foundation. And on behalf of the foundation, I'm really here to speak in support of the county's proposal to form a public utility. The legislation presents an opportunity to think about development of microgrids, supporting local clean energy development, distributed generation, that ultimately then generates economic opportunity and economic development within our region. And the foundation has a long history of the public-private partnerships, really with an intent to support those efforts that catalyze innovation and investment in clean and advanced energy locally. We see it from the perspective of what this means for economic development, what this means for security and reliability in our energy grid, affordability for everyone, and ultimately, environmental justice as we reduce, impacts or emissions from fossil fuels. This work includes both our support for the first offshore wind in the Great Lakes through Project Icebreaker, expanding solar on landfill and brownfield sites and our partnership with the county there. And for the past 3 years, we've served as the lead funder with the county advancing research and development for the Cleveland microgrid. The Cleveland microgrid, of course, being the district scale microgrid that was proposed to serve a large portion of downtown. As you may know, the foundation is in the process of relocating our offices to the Midtown neighborhood of Cleveland in late 2022. And we're really excited about the potential for the application of district scale microgrids, driving and stimulating some of the surrounding investments there. So our offices will be located at East 66th Street and Euclid Avenue next to the Dunham Tavern. But the headquarters is really part of a broader development and will anchor what is currently called the Midtown Innovation District, a proposed 10+ acre mixed-use research and development incubator hub that is really intended to connect both downtown and University Circle and certainly serve some of the core uses in the downtown and University Circle economies. And the foundation believes that the availability of clean, reliable energy is going to be integral to attracting potentially biomedical or technology-intensive businesses to locate in and around the Midtown Innovation District. And it's really going to be a differentiator, we think, for enterprises or businesses that are seeking that secure environment to do their work, whether they're already located here or whether they're being attracted to locate here from other parts of the country. We're currently working with our developer, Wexford Science and Technology, to explore the feasibility and benefits of a potential district scale microgrid application, or potentially extending the footprint of the proposed downtown district microgrid past East 66, where it currently ends. But ultimately, we believe that the county utility, has the ability to create commercial scale and district scale microgrids, distributed clean energy projects, and could be potentially integral not only to Midtown, but of great benefit to the entire region as we think about where those clusters of opportunity exist. So again, the foundation supports the proposal before the county council and is certainly happy to answer any questions now or as a follow-up to this discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Love. Are there any questions from the committee?
So if I may ask Mr. President, just quickly,
Yes.
it's interesting, Mr. Love, thank you. So in your opinion then, and knowing Cleveland and our weather and businesses that come here and the need, you think that if this microgrid was built, there would be a list of companies that would be eager to locate, or if they're already here, connect, and that this would be a economic boom for Cleveland. Is that, are you that confident that creating this microgrid would not be something where we would have to work and convince and go out there and try to find, but there would be a people already lined up, businesses already lined up wanting to be a part of it?
Thank you, Councilwoman Baker. As part of our initial research and development, the foundation and the county worked with the CSU Energy Policy Center to develop a series of economic and technological assessments around the Cleveland district microgrid. And a number of those studies really helped to paint a picture of both the opportunity to really create a competitive rate for power, for 5-9 power, both in the commercial industrial sector here. But when we compare that rate to, say, Boston or other markets throughout the country, that 5-9 power is pretty much on par with what they may already be paying. So it provides, I think, a really great opportunity, not only for conversion to microgrid power for the tenants or businesses that locally find value in it, but also creates opportunities to attract new businesses, whether that's in the biomedical space or increasingly also in the data technology space, where that uptime is really critical. And if I could, I'd defer any additional time in my comment to either Andy Thomas with the CSU Energy Policy Center or Ali Ahmed with Green Strategies, if that's permissible.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, Andy's on the call, I think so.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, so, right. I think Stephen portrayed our study correctly. We did a national survey of what companies were willing to pay, and they indicated that for 25% of the companies that responded to our survey said that 14 cents per kilowatt hour at 5.9 uptime would be significant and incentive by itself for them to move to a microgrid district. And we also did surveys of local companies asking them what they would pay, what they're currently paying, what data centers are currently paying all in, and it was around 15 cents or so per kilowatt hour. And our belief is that we will be significantly below those prices. And especially when you look at the smart grid strategy that Philadelphia was using, which we would propose to use with these as well, is, we would be able to access the PJM wholesale markets and be able to sell demand response into the markets and to be able to bypass the riders. And all of those would likely to leave us the ability to produce electricity in these microgrids. There's no, the warranty, if there is any warranty that is provided, would be similar to what NG is doing right now at Ohio State. They provide a 5.9 warranty at Ohio State, and if they fail to deliver that, they have a liquidated damages clause that deals with that scenario. And that's the kind of thing we would be looking for here too. So, we didn't get a list of customers who said, yes, we will move there instantly. But all we have is a companies telling us that they would be interested in that. So there would still be considerable amount of work to advertise and to attract industry to come into the microgrid district once it's built. But part of it is having the capability of having some extra space to be able to put them. And so that's kind of where we left it at the end of our study.
So if I may, so if you build it, they will come is more of what we're talking about. There isn't, Mr. Foley, you don't have some definite interest. If we build it, you have those businesses that said, absolutely, I'm going to jump on and you give us reliable energy, I'm there. Do we have any kind of commitments like that with the buzz of a microgrid coming to Cleveland, or no? You build it, they will come and we'll do the work once it's built.
Yeah, no, Councilwoman. So I think we've sent you a bunch of support letters of businesses locally who would be interested in the project. I think it'll be something in between where there's, if you build it, all of a sudden people are going to come here versus we're going to have to go out and do a whole bunch of marketing. I think it'll be something in between that.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
All right, are there any further questions?
Yeah, as long as, Andy, could you tell us what 5.9 is, just so we all understand what that means?
Yeah, yes, it means 99.999% uptime, which is about 5 minutes a year of downtime. And as juxtaposed to what the existing grid is, which is about 3.9, which is 99.9%, that's about 8 hours a year of downtime. And as Mike will remind everybody, Ohio actually has a pretty good track record for downtime among our utilities. We don't have a lot of natural disasters in Ohio, but that still is a significant difference between 8 hours a year and 5 minutes a year of downtime.
And who is covering the liquid damages clause that you talked about? You referenced, Andy?
NG. NG is a large utility, Fortune 500 utility.
And that's one of the folks that are talking about putting the grid in for us, NG?
Yes.
Obviously, we haven't selected, hopefully, a vendor at this point in time.
No, we haven't put out an RFP.
Right. Okay. So, but that would be in every single one of the vendors' requirements, that they would have a liquidated damage clause, and they would write a check to this gentleman, Anthony, for his $100,000 if hit with that liquidated damages for being the interrupted power. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, well, that certainly would be. It doesn't necessarily have to be the only way to do it, but that's certainly how they did it at Ohio State. And okay. There's like Mike has been saying, there's not a lot of examples of these sorts of commercial grids out there, and so we don't have. There's no industry practice for this yet, but that's certainly an established industry practice. And of course, those liquidated damages how difficult they are to make depends on the circumstances. I doubt seriously that NG is putting up $1 million if electricity goes out for a year. So, what the exact terms of those liquidated damages are, I'm not sure. But we could certainly take a look at it to see. Because we self-insure for that risk
currently in the county. So if they did not step up, we would be the self-insuring backstop on something of that nature, I would assume.
Well, no, utilities never warrant back uptime. And so, CEI doesn't warrant uptime, CPP doesn't, and neither would the county utility. That warranty is going to be entirely between the developer and the end user. So there would be no warranty of any kind from the utility.
Okay. Even though the contracting supplier is going to warrant it.
The supplier would warrant it, the developer and generator supplier would warrant the uptime to the end user.
And you're saying that CEI and CPP have never been sued by anybody successfully?
That's correct. No. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Councilwoman Baker, did I see your?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then Mr. Foley, any final comments from you?
I just have a question to Mr. Foley before we wrap it up, if that's okay, Mr. President.
Queenie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just 3 real quick questions. Can you send me Mr. Shafran's information? I won't mind talking to him, the gentleman that's in Galion.
Yeah.
Number 2 is,
He's from
we
Cleveland,
mentioned
by the
First
way.
Energy about 3 times today and a couple times before. I won't mind hearing from them, good, bad, or indifferent, or, so you're going to could you reach out to them, see what their opinion is, put something in writing, have them come in, and then we could get their take on it firsthand.
Yep, they could be a potential bidder for microgrid services, Councilman. So if you wouldn't mind talking to Law if we can do that or not. So the thing is, they could, like we don't want other energy companies who may be bidding on this to testify in front of you publicly. Let me talk to Law and see if we can figure that out. Okay, if that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, to the director. It just makes, for me, it's common sense. We start talking about somebody and they're in this just to ask them, but if they're precluded, I understand that. And lastly, to you, Mr. President, just with the opinion, because you started with that, do we have a timeline? Have we asked them how long it's going to take?
The prosecutor reached out roughly 2 to 3 weeks ago, and the prosecutor's response to me was it would not be long. So we may be looking at a few more weeks. I don't have a hard time for you. We're at their mercy in that context, but the prosecutor's office tends to think it will not be long.
Would it be inappropriate us to ask them for a specific time for our own due diligence without being disrespectful?
We actually have put out a request just to let us know as soon as they know. So we definitely can follow up with them.
Okay, and lastly, we have the 2 opinions that say it's okay. One from our attorneys and one from the LSC in the state of Ohio, Legislative Service Commission. Just curious what's up with them, or why'd we go down to Columbus to the Attorney General's office? I know, respecting my colleague, Mr. Gallagher, that's enough for me to go down, but I'm just wondering if that's normal practice.
Well,
Purnell, I can answer that.
Go right ahead, Mike.
Councilman, historically, that's what we've done because we were so new. When I originally asked Mr. Foley if we had checked, he did say that we didn't because we couldn't go down there. I don't think he knew the process by which we did it, which means we can't ask. We have to ask the prosecutor to request the opinion, and the prosecutor makes a determination on whether or not it's germane to the question or to the action. Evidently, in this one, he determined that. He sent that down to Columbus. And usually the answers are not burdensome as far as time. So I would anticipate, I made the request well over a month ago, and the prosecutor just got to sending it down. So that kind of delayed things because I didn't want to hold anything up. But historically, that's what we do.
And thank you, Mr. Gallagher, for that full explanation. I saw the request. It was very complicated, very long, and very detailed. So I know our prosecutor's working hard on our behalf. And Mr. President, I thank you for letting me speak. And Mr. Gallagher, thank you for filling me in on how that works down here. I relinquish
Mr. President, I would like to follow up with Councilman Sweeney's question quickly.
The floor is
Mr.
yours.
Sweeney, in the past, yes, we've asked for opinions from the state, but that was early on when we questioned what our authority and home rule meant as being a charter government. With the legal opinion and legal legislative services already confirming what we know is that we have authority, but now I guess we need another opinion about that, and I respect Mr. Gallagher's request, but I think we're well established as a charter government and we have home rule. And it's my opinion, we need to move, really be able to honor this unique position we're in the state, with the history, 10 years of confirming over and over again that we do have home rule. So, that's my opinion with the history, but, we'll see what they say. Being, CEI and First Energy associated with the largest scandal in Ohio, I'll be happy to entertain an alternative to that.
All right.
Mr. President, because Mr. Sweeney asked the CEI to be here, I think it only makes sense that we should get CPP also. Because
everybody.
I thought the opinion was actually not on the issue of home rule. I thought it was whether or not you could have multiple utilities in the same county, which is what the county prosecutor asked about. I don't think that's a question of home rule. That's a question of whether or not you could have two existing utilities in the exact same piece of dirt. And that's where I think the question came up from, at least from the county prosecutor. And that's who traditionally has asked our legal questions where we get into this kind of gray area out there, because he's our legal advisor.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we won't debate it at this time. Our time is ended. I appreciate all of our presenters for today. At this time, we're going to bring this meeting to a conclusion. So that we
Council
can go to our
President?
council meeting.
Council President?
Yes, Andrea.
Hi, I would like to let the record reflect that Councilmember Brown, Councilmember Stevens, and Councilmember Simon were in attendance for this meeting, for the record.
Excellent. Is there any miscellaneous business? If not, our meeting is adjourned. Let's prepare ourselves in the next, let's say about 3 minutes to begin our council meeting.